Good morning. Hey, come on in. Come on in. Some things you get into March, you get closer to spring, and some things start getting back to normal. We're going to try and get this out this morning and see what we can't do to get some people in here. There's one. And then I'm going to do this, and we're going to go from there. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, chain breakers. It is Monday, March the 2nd, 2020, and this is going to be a fantastic day because that's the way I choose for my day to be. Hi, I'm Brad Smith. I am your host for Chainbreakers 365 Live and the creator of hashtag Uplift and Rise. I want to welcome you in here today. This is going to be a great show, and I see some people starting to jump in here. Good morning, my dear wife, Patty. She's upstairs. Connie Davis from across the street. Got some neighborhood going on. But there's Nat Banks from Louisiana. So, Nat, glad you're in here this morning. We're going to get going here pretty quickly. I see some people jumping in. The numbers start climbing. We're going to get started. So, this morning, I've told you in the past that I've had trouble recently with some things that Facebook had done, and the ability to go live on my business page, it wasn't happening. It was erroring out every time. Well, fortunately, it appears that's gotten fixed. So hopefully, we're going to be able to do this. Because people are jumping in here, that's great. The other thing that was broken, and I won't know until this is over, is the ability to download. It wasn't allowing me to download the videos so that I could post them over onto YouTube. But if we can do that this morning, I'll even go back later today, see what we can't do to try and catch all of it up. But glad to see you here this morning. We are going to get started. So, what if you noticed up early in the title? If you noticed the title as you got in, my question was: are you an Apple or are you a thermostat? So I want to talk about that a little bit because there are some things that affect things, right? You probably heard the adage that says one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. And that's absolutely true. One bad apple can suddenly start rotting all the rest of them very, very quickly. On the other hand, maybe you're like yeast, right? Just a little bit of yeast and the entire loaf of bread starts to rise. The more yeast, obviously, the more rising that you're going to start getting. Oh boy, lots more people jumping in here. Adam Clastic, glad you're here. Amy Myers, glad you're here. Laura Berman, glad you've jumped in here. Sean Weatherby, glad you're here, my friend. And Susan Sherman, good to see you too. So you can be a bad apple, you can be yeast, right? And we see people that are absolutely like that as well, right? People that come in with a bad attitude, people that are just really, really negative about anything and everything they do. Hey, Tom, good to see you this morning. And that is kind of a cancer. It gets contagious. It starts infecting other people. And yet there are people that can kind of be like yeast and keep rising things up. Or you can be a thermostat. And here's what I'm talking about there. A lot of times, and my wife and I have been talking about this a lot over the winter, we may go out to a restaurant, a smaller restaurant, and somebody walks in the door, and because they're holding doors open, suddenly that warm restaurant will get cold really, really fast, right? And the entire environment will change very quickly because of that cold air suddenly rushing into the warm environment. It's kind of like the same thing with a negative person and that cancer that they can do. But if you've ever noticed, there's that thermostat. The thermostat that doesn't allow things to get too hot, doesn't allow things to get too cold, holds everything right here, right level. And I'm watching my hands, and as it reverses on my screen, it's hard to realize which one I need to move. But you can be the yeast, you can be the apple, or you can be the thermostat. So my question is, which one are you? Are you the apple with the negative attitude, the negative thing, the negative attitude that can affect others and bring them down and get them in that negative environment? Are you going to be the yeast that gets everything to rise? Or are you going to be the thermostat that just keeps everything level at an even temperature? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say the yeast is better than the thermostat, because both of them can have that very positive impact, right? They can bring the negative environment and bring it back to here. But the thermostat can also kind of tend to temper what the yeast is doing and helping everything around them rise. The question is what is better at that time? Because there are times that you need to be very, very positive, or you need to be level. There are those things that can be in that environment. However, there is one thing in particular that is common about both the thermostat and the yeast, is they will not allow for a negative environment, or a non-desirable environment, to affect them or infect them. So what am I talking about? How many times have each of us seen, and I guarantee you, we work with people that this happens to all the time. Sometimes, depending on what it is, it can bother us. The question is when that bad apple comes in, right? That person that's going to absolutely chew on you, or won't allow you to do what you want to do, or puts down your idea, or whatever, affects you or infects you in some negative way. Does your entire attitude change because of that? We all know people that happens with, right? And some people, they go up and they don't go down. You almost swear they're bipolar, because they're affected by everything around them, right? You never know who you're going to deal with for that day, because they're all over the board, because whoever they've dealt with last is affecting their attitude. My question is, what happens when that's going on in your environment? Will you help to bring them up? Will you help to temper that environment out? Will you help to keep them from affecting everybody else around them? Let's go back and let's say you're that person that gets affected negatively by somebody that doesn't necessarily do what you want them to do, doesn't react in the same way, or even comes at you in a negative angle, right? So here's my question. If somebody is coming at you, it would be easy to be affected in a negative manner when something extremely negative happens, right? And recently I've dealt with some of those that have really kind of rocked me. My question is, do you let that affect you for 5 minutes, 5 seconds, or 5 days? Now, it's probably not the 5 days, but you could easily go home that evening from work and say, man, did I really have a bad day? Well, did you really have a bad day? Or did you have a bad 5 seconds or 5 minutes that you then milked that all day long because you were so angry, you were so upset, they changed your thermostat, your own internal thermostat, they changed it to a way that you carried that with you all day long? Here's the good news. You can allow, if you are indeed a thermostat, you're the one that determines the temperature of the environment. You're the one that determines how you are going to be infected or affected. If that negative air or that cold air blows into that warm environment, hopefully we're going to see it the other way around in just a short while. But if suddenly that air comes in and changes the entire environment, are you going to be affected by it, or are you going to help re-regulate the entire environment for everybody else around you? You see, the nice thing about that is not only can we be affected by the negative, and that's not the good news. The good news is we can positively affect it as well. We have the complete ability to be in the world but not of it, right? It is where we're called to be Christians. We're called to be out in the world but not affected by the world. And see, those people that are strong in who they are, strong in their own mental attitude, strong in their own mental capability of where they are today, of their own attitude, of who they are as a person, that person is a lot stronger and can control their own attitude. You see, the other thing that helps that a lot is also starting your day in a positive way. We can start it positively or negatively. And the way you absolutely start your day will have an effect on how your day goes and what you're affected by. You see, if we get up at the last second and we're rushing and we're running around, right, we're trying to get everything done and get out of the house and get out on time because maybe we overslept, maybe we didn't get everything done, and we just felt like we were behind the eight ball, as it were, right? We can allow that to affect us entirely for the day. And now everything that comes at you in a slightly non-positive way, we take that in as being negative. And we can be affected by it and just think you just had a struggle all day long. You had a negative, upsetting day. Or we can start our day with gratitude. We can start our day in a positive mindset, already taking stock in what is positive in your life, being grateful for what you have, being grateful for all the good things in your life. And by simply taking the time to acknowledge it, to accept it, to bring it in, it starts to absolutely start setting your attitude for the day. Now, maybe when things come at us in the wrong way, we're not as affected by them because we already have that emotional bank account high enough that maybe just that slight withdrawal isn't going to overdraft us, right? Maybe even that negative thing could really knock us for a loop, but are we going to allow it to bother us for 5 minutes or all day long? It totally depends on where your emotional bank account is. You see, the more deposits we start making into that emotional bank account, the harder it is to let that negative impact or that rubber check, as it were, come in and overdraft you. It won't overdraft you if you've done enough deposits of the positive. Deposits of the positive. Interesting. But if you deposit into yourself, and you can do that every day by focusing on what you are grateful for, I start every day writing 10 things down. If you write them down every day, you take stock in them, you express your gratitude for them, you pray on them and thank God for them every day, you are already depositing with what you're doing for that day. You're already depositing that positive attitude. Now, what you also then tend to do, you tend to start focusing on positive things that come. You see, when we're in that negative attitude, positive things can come, and we don't allow them to bother us one way or the other. We don't allow them to deposit additional amounts into our emotional bank account because we are blind to them. It's like walking past the open door that's an open door to opportunity, and we don't even recognize it's there because that negative attitude already has us tunnel visioned, right? So the question is what are you going to allow to affect you? And then the next part of that is, once you know where you are, once you know how you are for the day, once you know what your attitude is, are you able to hold that all day? And are you now able to take that positive and start infecting others? Now, maybe what you need to do is help be the thermostat that keeps it from becoming negative. Maybe you're the yeast that helps to grow it. And if you're in a sales environment, you absolutely want to be the yeast, right? If you work, depends on the environment in which you work. Sometimes that can be a negative also, but we can allow that ourselves to be infected by it or affected by it. The question is, are you going to help infect others? My friends, I want to thank you so much for being here today. It means so much to me. I can't even begin to tell you. There were some other people that jumped in here later, and I do want to say welcome and thanks for joining in. Janine McConnell Hinkleman, thanks for joining in. Susan Brierley, Sean Jones, I'm glad you're in here this morning. I want you to do me a couple favors, if you would, please. One, make sure to share this out. Make sure other people know about this as well. If you have not gone in and liked Chainbreakers 365 business page, please go in and do that. Invite others to come in and do that. If you have not joined, hashtag uplift and rise, please do that, or ask your friends, ask your family, ask your Facebook friends to come in and join it as well. You see, my friends, we can, as a group, right, or as a team, we can either choose to just be neutral by it, or we can choose to start affecting other people and having that be the thing that starts changing all the environment around you as well. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you 7:30 tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. right here for Chainbreakers 365 Live. We'll see you then, my friends. Have an awesome day. Make it a memorable one, and be sure you're remembered yourself. Bye now.